serious, what is your most terrifying we need to leave now random rush of fear you felt? My car was stolen the very night I moved into my new house in a very good neighborhood. The neighbors had warned us that the neighborhood was being targeted at the time. They mentioned a woman around the corner that opened the door for knockers in the middle of the night and they attacked her and robbed her and almost killed her. We had reported the car stolen and did the police reports when it happened. Well, 2 nights later in the middle of the night I hear a knock on the door and they said open up, it's the police. Well, since I had heard the story about the other lady, I was suspicious and did not answer. I grabbed my kids and put them in my daughter's room because it had access to the roof from the window. I called the police to say that 2 men claiming to be police are pounding on my door. They said there was no police in the area and they are sending a car. Turns out, these same guys stole the car and came back for seconds. I did get my car back because they brought it with. Comment your thoughts below, and if you have a story related to this topic please share. When I was a preteen a strange man stopped and asked me for directions. That didn't make sense. As I'm trying to help him a van rolls up and the side door opens. I just booked it and never looked back. Damn, I had a similar experience when I was 14. I was walking home from school when a creepy older guy pulled over his work van, got out, was asking me for directions to a well-known local place, and feigning like he didn't understand what I was saying, in an obvious attempt to draw out the conversation. So that alone set off alarm bells in my head, but then he kept looking around the whole time, and I knew he was about to try something. Some lady happened to be walking from her house to her car, so I yelled out, "Hey mom, can you come here and help give this guy directions?" Surprisingly, the lady actually came over, and as she did, she yelled something like, "Your father and your big brothers will be out in a minute. Are you ready to go?" He looked panicked, quickly got back into his car and took off. Once he left, that lady told me she knew what was up and made sure I was okay before letting me use her phone to call the cops. Turns out I wasn't the only girl he tried to lure/abduct. My faith in humanity was both damaged and restored that day. Years ago my BF owned a truck tire repair company. He stopped by a customer's house unannounced one day to try to get a check as they owed a lot of money. When he came out of the house he was pretty shaken up. He explained the man's numerous other brothers were there. Unusual. Everyone was very jittery, but they cut him a check and then rushed him out. He had a scary feeling that day. 2 days later, that customer and his brothers were arrested for a murder that they had committed the night before we stopped by. When I was hiking in the woods and I saw a baby bear, I slowly turned and walked quickly away from the bear because I'm not getting eaten. I had to drag my friend along with me because he didn't understand why we needed to return the way we came from. Was riding my bike home from a friend's house when I was a young teen, over 20 years ago. We had both lost track of time, so it was dusk when I left. Lived about a mile away. Was traveling down one of the last roads to get home when I had this weird feeling. So I turned around to look back down the road. Saw headlights pass, stop, back up and turn on the road I was on. It was a pretty long road without many houses and no street lights or anything. As soon as they turned I bolted into the woods and hid pretty far in. The car slowly drove by and kept going. No idea what they were doing, but I didn't want anything to do with it. Hurricane Florence a year ago. We planned to ride it out as we were on a hill and in an area where the winds wouldn't be bad. Mostly ignored the news too. The night before, I got this huge pit of fear in my stomach and begged my dad for us to go stay with my sister a few hours inland. He fought with me about it, but I finally convinced him. We came back a week later to find the tree fallen into our house, the house full of water. A tornado formed in the woods behind the house and pushed the tree up a 45-degree slope into our roof and through our house. Now, I will always trust my gut feeling, no matter how stupid it seems. I was walking in my old local park with my sister. We entered it at about 3 PM and were hanging around until at about 9-9:30 we saw 3 people all wearing somewhat similar outfits all the way on the other side of the park. I immediately noticed, but don't think much of it. We walked for about 2 more minutes and I noticed one of them stopped and was staring at us. I immediately had a bad feeling and told my sister we should leave. She noticed and obliged. Later that night there was word of a stabbing in the park and the suspects were all the people we saw in the group of 3. I was walking by a long stretch of road with no houses. There was a cemetery. A van with 2 guys in it stopped to ask me if I needed a ride. This was in the late 90s, so it's not like hitchhiking was legal. I'm all, no thanks, I'm nearly home. They wouldn't budge. They kept following me with the windows down, kept saying come on, just get in. At some point they just stop and they start getting out. I was just a teen and they were clearly 20 something. I just took off running. I must have sprinted half a mile to get to an alley and hid by the nearest building near the road. I waited about 15 minutes before moving on to make sure they had given up so they wouldn't follow me home. I was at a party my freshman year of college and some seedy people were present. The night was getting very tense, but no fights or anything happened. As the night went on it became very clear to me something was going to happen. I told my friend it was time to leave. No more than 5 minutes after we left someone was stabbed and the stabber was shot. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and like for more future content.